the cybernetic constitution. Theory versus practice. A challenge for radical activists. This video is dedicated to revolutionary activists. So are you the revolutionary type? Are you an Antifa or Black Lives Matter activist? Or a Democrat who hates the Founding Fathers? Do you want to change the U.S. Constitution? Do you want to get rid of gun rights? Do you want to pack the Supreme Court? Well, let me begin by saying that your activism is nothing compared to the risks that the Founding Fathers of the United States faced when they fought for independence from England. This gravestone tells you about the fate they encountered. Summer of 2020 protesters, on the other hand, are the beneficiaries of the system the Founding Fathers created. Proof of this are the rights to protest and to speak up. They should feel grateful that they were not imprisoned for life, for destroying and burning property and abusing other people's rights. About the system you hate, may I ask, what are you proposing to create in its place? Why do you think so many people from all over the world want to migrate to the United States? Have you asked yourself, why don't they migrate to Cuba, or Venezuela, or North Korea? In my honest opinion, your activism is misplaced and wasted. Simply put, you are not aware that the system you are going against is the work of genius, but there is a lot to fix. But not what you are thinking. So, sit still, watch and learn. The Founding Fathers of the United States created the U.S. Constitution, a cybernetics masterpiece. What does this mean? It means that United States as the structure of a living system. It is not, like most business corporations or dictatorships, an authority-based pyramid structure. The United States was meant to learn and adapt, much like a human being. No wonder it is the longest surviving charter of government in the world. Nation-states are usually described as having the three elements of viable systems, but not all of them are truly viable. The U.S. constitutional structure shows the three elements of the viable system model. We get a system, the population at large, with its government, and a territory. The government is set up to control the system, so that the system can extract life from the environment, or territory. Taking this model a step further, we find that another great American president, Abraham Lincoln, contributes to understanding this living constitution. At the Gettysburg Address he said, and I quote, "That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." The origin of the phrase is due to John Wycliffe, who in 1384 wrote in the prologue to his translation of the Bible is for the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Lessons from the Bible, in the structure of the United States, are deeper than you think. This graph shows the people as the sovereign, and people providing services to the system, and people receiving goods and services. And you need a structure to get this done. The people embody the nation's identity, and as a collective body personify its sovereignty. So the Founding Fathers, seeking to preserve individual liberty and foster equality, created a self-balancing structure. It has three interconnected but separate branches of government: a Congress, an executive, and a judiciary. Here is a graph of how the Constitution looks like in theory. A simple self-governing, self-balancing system. The rule of law applies to everything happening within the borders of the territory of the United States. It is shown here, with its fuzzy border. That is the whole basic system of the U.S. government. Let's look into the government subsystem more closely. According to the separation of powers principle, which nurtures the structure of the Constitution, Congress makes laws according to the will of the people who elects them. The executive makes sure those laws are enforced. And the judiciary settles disputes. Call it the error detection and correction mechanism. This is the theory. Now let's look at what is going wrong now. Here is the nation-state's coordination systemic function. These are mainly laws and regulations that allow people not to bump into each other. For instance, airwaves concessions, drilling permits, and so on. For instance, banks have a coordination function between people with savings and people that could use a loan to create more jobs. Now, let's us turn our attention to the basic problems of how the Constitution is being perverted. Problem number 1 is representative democracy. It is clearly outdated. The problem subdivides into 3. First, the electoral system is abused. Second, representation is based on geography, not knowledge. 3. A congressman's job number 1 is to re-elect themselves. Problem number 2 has to do with the executive. The executive power is dominated by a huge bureaucracy whose job number 1 is to spend as much money as possible. The bureaucrats always ask for unlimited spending. And there is little transparency because the accounting system is just too complicated. But let's watch closely at what is going on now with the banks and Wall Street. Banks are, in theory, a coordination function. The trouble with banks and investment firms is that they have been incorporated, de facto, into the executive function. Banks make most of their business by loaning money to the federal government. Let's look at other communication lines in the system, for instance, the recent electoral role of social networks. They should play a neutral role serving as a link and communications tool between citizens. Instead, they create a fast-forward feedback function from citizens to the structure of government. However, the trick they play is that they filter what they want and amplify the messages that they want to stand for the truth. For all practical purposes, they become another branch of government, but accountable to no one. A censorship ministry operating outside the scope of government. On occasions, they too have invaded the role of the executive function and turned into a high-gain amplifier for the liberal political agenda. They are the first to violate the First Amendment rights to free speech. This huge metasystem is their playground. So, if you are a true American revolutionary, worry about making this metasystemic government structure work as it was intended. Worry about clean elections, freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, and term limits in Congress. Worry about full transparency and stopping wasteful spending. Prevent any more wars. That is a good set of goals for a modern cybernetic revolutionary.